Saturday morning, March 15th, 1941. Cities and towns across the Prairie provinces of Saskatchewan and Manitoba are enjoying the last days of winter. All week, mild temperatures and clear skies have melted some of the snow, and it looks like spring is well on its way.
March is like November. The weather can be unstable because it's a transition time from winter to spring, and you have increasing daylight, you have warming temperatures, yet you still have winter that doesn't want to let go.
Forecasts do call for slightly lower temperatures later that Saturday, with the possibility of a few flurries by evening. But all in all, it's shaping up to be a great weekend. For farm families in the rural areas, it's the chance to take a break from the chores and do some shopping in nearby towns. In southeastern Saskatchewan, in the town of Weyburn, 24-year-old Merlin Bell and his father Archibald head out to do a little horse trading in the area. Since the weather has been so mild, Merlin shucks his winter coat for something lighter.
Just a light jacket. No gloves and a hat that wouldn't pull down over my ears. It was just a beautiful morning. I drove all the way from Weyburn with the window wide open. That's how nice it was.
Not far away, 57-year-old farmer Fred Abel has already enjoyed an early morning walk from his farm to the nearby town of Hallbright. From there, he's catching the train to Weyburn to buy medicine for his wife Sophia, who stays behind to look after their children. Across the border in southwestern Manitoba, 42-year-old Agnes Jansen is also taking advantage of the fine weather to visit her brother's neighboring farm.
My mom was good at making soap, so she decided this was a day that she was going to go to my aunt's place to help her with her soap. It was a very beautiful day, sun shining.
14-year-old Ann Jansen has decided to stay home with her father John, but her 6-year-old sister Marie is looking forward to spending the day with her cousins.
My aunt always said that if Marie was there, she did not have to worry where the boys were because they were always with her. And she could entertain them really well so that they would not run away. And that's just how Marie was. She was just a very loving person.
Although some of their neighbors have cars, Agnes and Marie are traveling by horse and sled. With the Depression just over, most farms in the area have been slow to modernize. Many families, including John and Agnes Jansen, don't yet have a telephone.
It was a transition phase from the horse-drawn culture to mechanized. Now, some farms had their own power plants, but most farms did not have electricity, so they read by kerosene lanterns, stuff like that.
Still, with the weather as nice as it is, it's a perfect day to be outside. In Alberta, however, most people are happy to stay indoors. After a mild, clear Friday, residents of Edmonton and Calgary wake up Saturday morning to wet snow and high winds that cause temperatures to plummet well below zero. The sudden change in the weather is the result of a high-pressure system born in Alaska and now rushing across Alberta, hot on the heels of a low-pressure system also moving eastward. When cold Arctic air meets warmer temperatures, the result can be a storm known as an Alberta Clipper.
Generally, weather systems in North America move west to east. And as the low moves in a generally easterly fashion, it kind of creates a vacuum, and that high pressure rushes in to fill that vacuum. And that difference in pressure leads to where you have the high winds. So with an Alberta Clipper, you have a rapid drop in temperature. And that moves from northwest to southeast. That does not have a lot of precipitation with it, but has high winds and falling temperatures.
The blizzard in Alberta catches weather forecasters by surprise. A revised forecast is issued for Saskatchewan and Manitoba, calling for strong northerly winds and much colder temperatures than originally expected.
There was warnings sent out, but the trouble is, did people hear them? Were the radios on? Were they on the road? You know, if your radio's turned off, how many cars had radios in 1941?
Farmer Fred Abel has neither a car nor a radio. After picking up his wife's medicine in Weyburn, he catches the train back to Albright and heads for home the way he came, on foot, unaware that something fierce and very dangerous is about to descend upon him. Merlin Bell and his father Archibald are on their way home when the winds begin to blow.
Dad's hat flew off. I went out to get it, and I walked right into the snow. It was all loose snow. My legs got wet at that time. And I got back in the car again and drove maybe 5 miles. When we just drove right into it, just like a barn door. Just like you walk through, and they'd pull the door shut. Didn't see nothing, so we just kept going.
Merlin knows that the town of Mydale is right on the highway ahead, a place where they can find shelter and safety.
This was a town that we expected. Well, we can't go through there without seeing. We did. We drove straight through.
Barely able to see ahead of them, Merlin slows to a crawl. Suddenly, something looms in front of them. They collide with a truck stalled in the middle of the highway.
But my dad had his face right up the glass, and I was looking out the window at the ditch. I heard him holler, and I put on the brakes. But I don't think I was going 10 miles an hour.
With their vehicle damaged by the collision, Merlin and Archibald Bell decide they have no choice but to seek shelter from the storm, if they can find it.
I knew when I started walking I wasn't going to last long because Dad was playing out. And I'd walk with him, and then I'd run ahead, and then I'd turn around and run back. And he was still coming.
Gradually, as Merlin struggles to survive the storm, the distance between him and his father becomes greater.
I knew darn well, if I ever fell down, I'd never get up again.
Meanwhile, near the town of Albright, farmer Fred Abel is also lost in the whirlwind of blowing snow. He can feel the temperature dropping, getting colder by the minute.
When you start shivering, that's your body trying to warm itself up. That's a warning sign. What happens next is your extremities start to get colder. And your fingers and toes, ears, nose start to freeze up.
Then, Abel sees something in the distance. It is the outline of a house that he recognizes as his neighbor's. Taking refuge inside, Abel realizes that he has missed his own farm by almost 2 kilometers. Back at the farm, Fred's wife Sophia waits anxiously for his return. The snow is blowing so hard now, she can barely see the barn across the farmyard. She can only hope that wherever her husband is, he is safe and warm. Dressed in only a light jacket, Merlin Bell can feel himself freezing to death, his hands and feet numb with frostbite. Several times, he veers off the highway into the ditch, unable to tell them apart. Then, he spots a house just off the road.
The house is right close to the highway, and I couldn't get up the steps. And I backed up and kind of took a run at it. And when I stumbled inside, they thought I was drunk. And I said, "Have you got a coat big enough for me so I can go back and get my dad?" He's walking behind me. But I could tell they didn't want to give me a coat because they knew that I was not fit to go out anywhere.
400 kilometers to the east, in the Red River Valley of southern Manitoba, Agnes Jansen and her daughter Marie climb into their sleigh. It has been a wonderful day making soap and visiting with Agnes's brother and his family. But the wind is coming up, and it's time to go home. The Jensen farm is just a short distance away. But on this particular afternoon, as the winds rise and the temperatures fall, home has never been so far away. Saturday afternoon, March 15th, 1941. Saskatchewan is in the throes of an intense winter blizzard that arrives suddenly, seemingly out of nowhere. People in the capital city of Regina call it the worst in 20 years. Several residents are injured in automobile and streetcar accidents caused by the storm. It is much worse, however, in rural areas, where howling winds blow freely over unprotected prairie.
There's not enough change in landscape to slow the winds down. It's the very flatness of the terrain increases the speed of the winds.
In southern Saskatchewan, near the town of Halbright, neighbors try to persuade farmer Fred Abel to stay until the winds subside. But Fred has had a chance to warm up and regain his bearings, and he must get home with the medicine he picked up earlier for his wife, Sophia. Sophia Abel and her children are at the family farm, anxiously awaiting Fred's return, unaware that he is less than 2 kilometers away. For a time, Fred is headed in the right direction, but the driving snow soon throws him off course once again, as the bitter cold saps his strength and his will to carry on.
People caught out in a blizzard, especially if they're on foot, they can lose their bearings because of the visibility, and they'll stumble around. And if they're not adequately dressed, they can quickly succumb to hypothermia.
The heat from the body tends to concentrate in your torso. This is why people start to get frostbitten from the legs, arms, inwards, until finally the body temperature falls, and you lose consciousness, blood pressure drops, and that's it.
400 kilometers to the east, in southwestern Manitoba, 42-year-old Agnes Jensen urges her horse into the blowing snow, her 6-year-old daughter Marie huddled in the sleigh beside her. They are halfway home with less than a kilometer to go, but the storm is getting worse by the minute, and no one realizes they are still out there.
I guess about 5 o'clock it started storming, and you couldn't see from the house to the barn. It was so bad. Dad thought that Mom had stayed at my uncle's place, and my uncle thought that Mom would have got home. We had no phones, so.
Whiteout conditions and the enveloping darkness make it impossible to see. But from past experience, Agnes is confident that their horse will instinctively know the way back home. But it too is becoming disoriented and lost.
It was a horse that we went to school with. We thought she should have known her way home. But the storm was so hard that I guess she could not go against the storm. So they came to our corner, and instead of turning left onto our road, they turned right and went across the field.
The wind howls around them, tearing the cab top from the sleigh. Agnes holds her daughter close, trying desperately to protect her from the raging wind and biting cold. Sunday, March 16th, 1941. On the Canadian prairies, the blizzard has disappeared as quickly as it came, crossing the border to wreak havoc in the United States. In the early daylight hours, roads are plowed, vehicles rescued, electrical and telephone services restored, and those that were blown in by the storm begin to dig themselves out. Archibald Bell has survived thanks to his heavy winter coat and is able to find the same house that his son Merlin has taken refuge in. Merlin does not fare as well. His frostbitten hands need immediate attention, and the prognosis is not good.
Right across the knuckles here, They were snow white. The doctor says, we'll have to take them 3 fingers off. They're done for, they're froze bad. Dad says, no, leave them on. He's tough enough.
Merlin Bell is one of the lucky ones. Other family members search for those who haven't made it home and discover that some never will. The body of Saskatchewan farmer Fred Abel is found early Sunday morning where he had collapsed after becoming lost in the swirling snow.
Once the 75-mile-an-hour winds hit, he didn't have a chance, and the snow and the wind did not have a chance. So he ended up dying trying to get medicine for his wife.
In southern Manitoba, some 400 kilometers away, another farmer, John Jansen, waits for word from his wife, Agnes.
He had been watching all night. I don't think he had slept at all, but he told us that the storm started so early that she was probably still at my uncle's place.
Unfortunately, this is not the case. Agnes Jansen and her 6-year-old daughter Marie are found still huddled together in their sleigh, less than a kilometer from home.
My cousin came over and he told us that Mom and Marie had frozen. We had to go to my uncle's place where they had put them and saw them. Very devastating. It's not a pleasant thing to look at. And Marie had one spot on her face that was still not frozen. That's where Mom had held her. Maybe if we could have phoned, it would have been different, but we couldn't phone. And it wouldn't have done any good if we had had a phone, because Dad would have gone out to look for them, and he wouldn't have made it either.
In terms of snowfall and duration, the Prairie blizzard of 1941 rates only as a minor winter storm, yet it remains one of the deadliest on record. A total of 8 Canadians are killed on the Ides of March 1941, all living in rural areas. 71 Americans also die as the storm blows its way through the northern United States. A combination of factors account for the extent of the tragedy, including the suddenness and intensity of the storm's arrival, and the fact that it happened on a Saturday.
A lot of people on Saturday were going to town for shopping. So, I mean, they were en route. They were either in town, coming and going.
It caused enormous amounts of damage, and the main reason for that is lack of communication. People are out on their farms or stuck on their fields or wherever they were and just didn't know that this monster was coming in. I believe that one of the reasons why southern Saskatchewan requires farm lights now is because of maybe that storm or maybe others, but they finally said, okay, you've got a farm out here, you better have bright light in your yard. So if people are stuck out in the middle of one of these god-awful things, they can at least have a chance of getting to where there's some shelter.
Even with today's more sophisticated warning systems and improved weather forecasting, winter blizzards can still be dangerous if not treated with the respect they deserve. Those who experienced the Prairie blizzard of 1941 know that firsthand and will never forget.
I can remember every minute of the day while the blizzard was on, and I said, never again will I go anywhere without my hat and my big mitts. That's the first thing I think of. I have them in the trunk of the car.
I know that my mom was a very good person. She will always be remembered as my mom, as my close friend, and my sister as a close friend. I think those are some things that you remember.